Hello. Last time we were discussing the arguments of those that were opposed to Heter, the מכירה. Now we want to have the Tanis Rabbanim Hamatirim. We will discuss the arguments, the claims of the rabbis that were in favor of allowing the Heter מכירה, the selling of the land. Aleph. Munach Harishon. Again, we're continuing a sefer Shmita over Tukuchinsky. Munach Rishon hu Shaanu Nektinnan Shvis Bzman Hazei Rabbanan. The first principle that we have to look at, that we have to examine, is that Shmita in our time is rabbinic in nature. And im ki yeshnam Mrabotenu haposkim haomrim shegam b'zman hazei da'oraisa. Even though there are some of our rabbis, the poskim, that have said, that have given the psak halacha that Shmita today is from the Torah. וכדכ הכסף משנה בדעת הרמב. The Kesef Mishnah says this in the opinion of the Rambam. However, the vast majority of the poskim have said that the Gemara seems to paskins like Rabbi. Haomrim b'zman shetem b'shamei karka tam b'shamei kasafim. When the land goes back in the oval, you also release money from the debts are forgiven in Shmita. And this is rabbinic. Rebbe is saying that he can institute the principle of prusbol, a way of not having the debts being released, because it's a rabbinic in nature, and therefore we don't have a problem with the Beis Din HaGadol making a possibility of not having the debts annulled. So Rebbe is paskening that Shmita is rabbinic in nature. And that is the way the Gemara runs, and we see throughout the Gemara that we do allow the principle of prusbol that everyone, Bezras Hashem, should be making in the last month of this year. V'ken hu b'Rashi, and this is also what Rashi says in Gittin, Sanhedrin, V'Tosfos Gittin, and Tosfos in Gittin also says V'od, and many other poskim have the exact same idea. V'ken hu b'Yerushalmi Shvis, so Perek Tes Otu, the Yerushalmi in Shvis says, Shmis midrabban Gamliel v'chaverab. The Yerushalmi says explicitly that Shmita b'zman hazei is an enactment of Rabban Gamliel and his colleagues. They enacted a whole series of tikanos so that we would know how to act when the temple was reestablished. And according to the Yerushalmi, this is one of them. The Ken Das Torah, and this is also the opinion of the Torah. Especially when the master of Eretz Yisrael, the Peyas HaShulchan was one of the Talmidim of the Vilna Gaon who made Aliyah, and he wrote a very important sefer known as Peyas HaShulchan on the mitzvahs Taliyas Ba'aretz, of course, including Shmita, and there he has a long discussion on whether Shmita is Deraisa or Derabanan B'Zmanenu, and he paskins that it is Derabanan. Mibavli v'Yerushalmi, he argues there both in Bavli and the Yerushalmi. Shalacha karebi, that the halacha of Allah's Rebbe, v'shmitas karka k'shmitas kasafim Derabanan, that resting of the land, giving back of the land, returning, not collecting debts after the Shmita, all of this is rabbinic in nature. We will, in a future shiur, look at the sources and examine exactly how we know the Gemara with Rebbe and so on with the prusbol and everything else, to see how Shmita b'Zmanenu in our time is rabbinic in nature. So the second point of argument that the rabbanim who want to allow the Heter Mechiras have to say, Mikevan Shu Rabbanan, because we have established that Shmita, or the vast majority of poskim paskin the Shmita is Rabbanan, ha'omru, they said, the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, Poku v'zaro b'shvis mishum arnona. There was a Roman tax on the land, and if you didn't pay the tax, the Roman government would take your land away. So they said, go out and seed your fields during the Shemitah year so that you can have the produce to pay the tax from this. Because the Shmita was only the Rabbanan, therefore the rabbis could say, in a circumstance where you will lose the land because of this, if you do not pay the tax to the king, therefore it is possible to plant during the Shmita year. Ubeprat shirov yishuv misparnes kiyom mischar peres v'otzasam lechul, and especially today, he writes, when the majority of the Jewish settlement near Israel makes its money, makes its parnasa either directly or indirectly from growing produce and selling it to Chutz La'aretz, vein lanu pseidet yoser gedol mizu, and there is no greater loss than this, because if we didn't sell in the Shmita year, then our customers would find other sources for the produce that they buy from us, and they wouldn't come back later. So it would not only be a loss for the 1 year, it would be a permanent loss. This is similar in certain ways, you might say, to ikum yelana, that you're allowed to do work to allow the tree to live. Af amnam vade efshar lachshav netishas perashvis peseda. You obviously cannot think of abandonment of the Shmita fruits as a loss. Shari zuhi mitzvah. This is in fact what the mitzvah is. Kamosha ein mitchashvim im hefsid shar mitzvah gon leket shicho peah that domesh zuhi mitzvah. Just like we don't calculate it in other things, meaning leket shicha and peah, leaving the various things in the field for the poor, 16th of the corner of the field for the poor to come and harvest. We don't say, oh, well, it's a loss of me for this amount, so therefore I can. No, the mitzvah is to give it over in this way. The mitzvah of Shmita is that's not ours. So you can't say Shmita is a loss, therefore I can't keep it. It has to be thought of in this way. Yesh l'chalik, as a mitzav shel hayom min a mitzav shel ifnim. You can differentiate between the situation today and the historical situation. As hayeshu miskayim mitocho. It was that the Jewish population in Eretz Israel survived from what it did within itself, meaning we didn't have much international commerce, as we would call it today. There was very, very little. Mostly people grew things in Eretz Israel, and they sold them to their colleagues, and they lived off them, and so on. In general, they did not send fruit of Eretz Israel to Chutz La'aretz, and they certainly didn't on Shmita. In fact, there's a halacha not to it, which we'll discuss at a later point. Davar sheyesh b'hem chai nefesh mishum yishuv Eretz Yisrael. And for us, it's the entire existence of the yishuv in Eretz Yisrael could not exist without these exports. Now, when Rav Tukachinsky was writing it, that was certainly true, and it was even true much more so 50 years earlier, 70 years earlier, when people were arguing about the initial sale of land to non-Jews for the Shmita year. But today it's approximately 4% of Israel's economy, probably more now that there's no tourism, but hopefully Corona will soon be completely gone and tourism will return to normal. Ve'ilu kiyom, adarabah yishuv Eretz Yisrael v'chai nefesh shel yoshveha dorshim hotzas peres l'chutz la'aretz. The existence of the yishuv in Eretz Yisrael is dependent upon our selling fruit to Chutz La'aretz. It may not be for the entire yishuv anymore, it may only be part of the yishuv. That last argument you don't hear made very much. Although for that population, it is necessary for them to export produce, it is necessary for them to make it. The third point. Od ezei tzad hitziu rabbanim achadim l'histamech gam al shitas yeshomrim hamuva b'ran b'gittin she'ashmita b'zman hazei rak mimidas chassidus. I don't want to discuss this very much because it was not used much initially, and it's certainly not used very much today. But there is an opinion brought in the Ran and Gittin that Shmita b'zman hazei is only a midas chassidus. It's not even rabbinic legislation. He's saying that the Ran brings this opinion. He doesn't paskin that, but he brings an opinion that Shmita is only a minhag, like which nusach yudaven nusach Ashkenaz, nusach Sfard, nusach Edot Mizrach, all of these different nusachos. So too we have a minhag to keep Shmita. Now, this has been rejected by almost everyone, so it was only used as a very, very minor point, and in fact, it's sort of half dismissed as we go on. This is the first half of the arguments of those people that argue for selling land for Shmita. And the next year we will discuss the second half, the second group of arguments, and after that we'll start looking into the heter mechira more seriously, and then other ways of dealing with Shmita. I wish that everyone should have a wonderful day.